Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our session, Take Reporting and Analytics to the Next Level with Power BI.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. Appreciate it. So yeah, my name is Shivanand Duku. You can call me Shiv for short. And in this session, what I want to take you guys through is taking your reports to the next level using Power BI. So in this session, we would cover understanding the Power BI architecture. We will connect and prepare some data for analysis. We'll define the data model in Power BI, build some reports and visualizations, and then close off by publishing that and sharing these reports to a Power BI service, with concluding on the licensing aspect of Power BI. So I'm going to move right along, and the first question that you may have is, what exactly is Power BI? And Power BI is a tool, a Microsoft tool that provides self-service, scalable enterprise business intelligence analysis. It is part of Microsoft's Power Platform business applications, which includes Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Virtual Agents. This second point here really says that it's a sophisticated and smart tool where users can share insights using tons of visualizations and utilize built-in AI capabilities and connect to almost any other data source via pre-built or custom data connectors. And finally, it can help you protect your data analytics through leading data security features, including sensitivity labeling, end-to-end encryption, and real-time access monitoring. So that's really just an overview of what Power BI is. The next thing I would like to share is the Power BI architecture. And in this particular slide, we can see the whole Power BI ecosystem. The first bucket here is really where the data analyst sits. And here is where you can download Power BI desktop freely and connect to any one of these data sources, inclusive of many others, SQL, HADOP, text, CSV, you name it, you can connect to it. And normally this is done through direct query. Now, direct query is basically just connecting directly to your data, and it shows the current data as it is. In some cases, though, you may not want that, and you may actually want to import your data into a local model and store it in the local model. And that's where we have this second section called import data. What this does is it actually imports all of your data, and it is stored in a local model powered by this VertiPack engine, which encodes and compresses the data locally. Once that's done, you may then want to transform your data before loading it into the model, and this is done through the Power Query function in Power BI. Power Query is a data preparation and transformation engine that uses a graphical user interface powered by M code. Once your data is cleaned, transformed, and loaded, it's then time to build the data model and start creating your reports and charts on Power BI desktop. So that's these three little icons here where you can see you're just like building some reports and visualizations. Once that's done, the second bucket is really where the Power BI administrator sits, and these reports and dashboards are then, if you want to share them with your team, you'd likely have to publish them to Power BI service. So Power BI service is a SaaS offering, software as a service, hosted on Microsoft Azure. It is typically the role of the admin to create the workspaces where the data analyst publishes these reports to. In some cases, your data source resides on premises, and therefore a special gateway is needed to access these on-premises data sources so that your data can be refreshed. And that's why you have this gateway icon here showing that the Power BI service can connect to on-premises data sources. Finally, you can share these reports, these published reports, to the public by embedding them in web pages. And this way, there's no need for end users to have Power BI licenses with this method of sharing. However, if the reports are meant to be consumed within the workspace of Power BI service, end users must have the appropriate license. So this is really just a natural life cycle of the Power BI process of getting data to end users in order to perform self-service analytics. The last portion at the bottom here is, in case if your organization isn't ready to go to the cloud using Power BI service, you can use this secondary option, which is Power BI Report Builder. And this is really a superset of SSRS, which some of you may be familiar with. And this can be installed on premises to provide pixel-perfect reporting capabilities. So with that, I'd like to take you to the real juicy part of this presentation, which is a demonstration of Power BI. So let's take a look at how we can extract, transform, load data, develop a data model, create visualizations, and publish to the service. What I'm going to do is, first I will show you the art of the possible, which is a published report and Power BI service. As you can see here, this is Power BI service, and we have some lovely charts, graphs here that show sales overview, customer overview, regional overview, and some AI visualizations, which is a decomposition analysis. Before we get to here, we actually have to open up Power BI desktop. So I am going to do that right now. And I'm going to open up Power BI desktop. And this is going to be my landing page where you can see some information about Power BI, what's new on it, some forums, a blog, tutorials, last accessed Power BI files. So I'm just going to close this, and this is the canvas here. You can see on the right-hand side, we have a few panes, a filter pane, a visualization pane, which is all of the different visualizations, and a data pane where your data tables will be loaded. On the left-hand side, we have a couple icons, which would be the report view. This is the view I'm in right now with a canvas. The data view, which you can view the data of your tables, and a model view, which I'll get to when we actually start the data modeling. So at the top, the first thing you'd like to know is, well, hey, I need to get some data, so let's do that. You have so many different data sources here, from Excel workbooks, Power BI data sets. If I hit more, you can see the different categories where we can get some data. That's going to pop up in just a sec. We can do that from flat files, Excel files, databases, Azure databases, online services like Dynamics, and even other different types of data sources. For this example, I want to grab some data from a few places. The first is going to be an SQL server. I'm just going to type localhost here, hit OK. And then I'm going to connect to this specific table, which is stored on my SQL Server localhost. We have a couple options here, which is to load and transform data. I'm not going to go directly to load because I do want to transform my data a bit. And once I click on that, the next window that will open up is the Power Query window, which we spoke about earlier in the Power BI architecture. So as you can see here, this is the data loaded from my SQL table. You can see a couple columns here, and I want to do one small transformation in this specific table. In my sales column, as you can see, this is currently as text, and this is no use to me. I want to be able to transform this. So what I'd like to do is I want to hit transform and just split this column out by a specific delimiter, which is space. I'm going to use the leftmost delimiter and hit OK. Once that's done, that column is split into two columns, where I actually have my sales in numeric form, and then this first column here, which I no longer need. So I'm just going to hit remove that column. Next thing I'll do is I'll just rename this specific column to sales to give it something a bit more user-friendly. And finally, you can see that now my sales is decimal, my quantity is whole numbers, my discount percentage is decimal, but my profit for some reason is in text. And I believe that's because we have some null values in here. So I'm just going to click on this little button at the top and change that to a decimal number as well, so that all of my blank fields are now replaced by null values. And so far so good. My sales table looks great. And I want to grab a couple more other tables. The first one would be this customer master CSV. I'm going to connect directly to that. This looks good. Hit OK. And this looks okay to me, but the one thing that I want to do is I want to use the first column, the first row as a header. So I'm just going to hit this button at the top here, and there you go. You can see that the first row is used as a header. And I just want to draw your attention to the right-hand side of this panel where I have my query settings. This is really just a step-by-step view of all the changes that I'm making in each one of these queries. I want to add one more table, and that's going to come from an Excel workbook. This is going to be my product master table. I'm going to hit OK. And once I select that table, I hit OK. As you can see, we need a little bit of transformation to be done on this specific table. The first two rows we do not need, so I'm going to hit remove rows, remove the top two, hit OK. Those two rows are gone now. I'd like to use the first row as headers. So I click this button, those go up to headers. And as you can see, these first two columns, we have a lot of nulls in here. And it's because of how the data is shown in Excel. The formatting wasn't that great, but we could fix this really quickly by right-clicking here and hitting fill down. And that would take care of this specific column. Alternatively, I can click on the column here and go to transform, and the same options that you have when you right click on a column, most of them are available on the top ribbon here. So I can hit fill down, and that takes care of this column as well. And these three tables are ready to go. So once I hit close and apply, you will see in a brief moment that Power BI is doing all the transformations, all of the cleaning that we just went through. And that data is going to show up here in a quick second. And there you go. Here, if you go to data view, you can see the different tables that we've just loaded in, product master, sales order, and we need to do some data modeling. So with this specific step, I want to be able to show you that this is how a model is created. Now, Power BI, being very intelligent, has already created some connections for us, some relationships, where the customer key in our customer master table is linked to our customer code, and the product code is linked to the product code from the product master to the sales order table. Now, here's one cool thing that I like to do specifically, which is I like to create a centralized date table. So the quick way to do that is to hit new table, and I'm going to actually create a new table here called date, and I'm going to use a function called calendar auto, which automatically creates a date table for me with a number of dates. You can see what that looks like when I go back to here and I look at that specific date column. It's created as date time. I don't need that. I just want date. And I typically like the format year, month, date. And I just want to create a couple extra columns to help with my analysis, which would be a year, a month, and a quarter column. So this new column, I'm just going to call it year. And what I'm doing is I'm using the data analysis expression language to create these new columns, as you can see. It's called DAX for short, and it's a really powerful language. Some functions are simple and some functions are a little bit more advanced, but as you can see, I'm using really simple syntax here to create some extra columns. We've got the month number in and two more additional columns, which would be my month name. So I'm going to use this format function, date. I like my months to be in short form. There you go. And one final column, which would be my quarters. It's a little bit trickier, this specific function, but you'll see that it works really easily to get my quarters in. And just like that, we have a dates table with date, year, month, month name, and quarter. Last thing I'd like to do is I'd like to sort my month name by my month number to make sure the sorting looks good. I'll go back to my model view and I'll connect my dates table to my sales order table by hitting Manage Relationships, New, and I'm going to grab my date table and my sales order table. And as you can see, I have these columns, the date column and the order date column, and Power BI will create a relationship between the date table and the sales order table. It's a one-to-many relationship, meaning that each value in my date table is unique. There could be multiple values that are duplicated in my sales table, as you can see with the first two records here. And this will be a single direction filter. So I'm going to hit OK, close. You'll see that relationship popping up here. And now I'm going to go back to the report view and let's start building some reports. So the first thing that I can do is, you can see we have sales here. I can just drag that onto the canvas and this will create a visualization for me. It's a vertical column chart. And if I hover over it, you can see that the value here is 2.26 million. This isn't not a bad way to represent this data, but from our visualization screen, we can have other options of visualizing this particular field. I can use a card visualization, which then summarizes this into just one value. And if let's do a little bit of formatting on that using the format visual tool here. I'm going to just make that a little bit smaller. And we have some other aggregations that we can showcase here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this by hitting copy or Control-C. And then I hit Control-V from my keyboard or paste at the top here. I'm going to give you these other cards at the top. And I want to change these to show total profit. This one I'm going to show total quantity. And this one here, it does not make sense to show the discount percentage. I want to show profit margin, and I'll show you how to calculate that. So we can hit new measure to create a new calculated measure, and I will call that profit margin percentage. And I'm going to use a function called divide, which divides the numerator by the denominator. And my numerator is going to be the sum of the profit and my denominator is going to be the sum of sales. Once I pop in my close brackets and I hit enter, because this is a percentage, I want to format that as percentage. Let's do 1 decimal place. And you can see that this measure is created in this table, customer master. I just want to move that to sales order. And I can now remove that particular value there, drag that up here, and we have our profit margin. So these are some KPI cards, and let's start creating some visualizations. So I want to go and let's drag the sales back in. And let's say I want to look at my sales across different products. So we can do that by dragging the product group to the x-axis. And there you go. This looks good, but maybe I want to change this into a horizontal view. So I can click on clustered bar chart, which shows me horizontal bars. And easy as you like, you've got a horizontal bar chart here. And what if I want to ask myself, well, okay, let's see how the product types are doing. Well, maybe I can create a new visualization here, but I can also drill down using these visualizations. So I can drag my product type just under product group in the y-axis, and nothing will come up here, but you can see we have some options that show up at the top, where you can turn on drill down, go to the next level in the hierarchy, or expand one level down. If I click this next level in the hierarchy, you can see that we're going down to the product type now. And I can hover over each one of these items to see what the values are. Let's add a little bit of formatting here to turn the data labels on. And there you go. We've got the sum of sales by product type. Drill right back up, sum of sales by product group. I know we're a bit pressed for time, but I'll show you one more visualization before we publish this to the service. So let's say we want to look at our data across the different years. So the best thing to do is use a line chart to do that. Sorry about that. I needed to click out of the canvas and click line chart. And now we can add some data to this line chart. Let's look at this data on the x-axis by year and by sales. We could also add profits here as well. And let's say we want to look at this by year and month as well. I can add month underneath the year in my x-axis, and there you go. You have a nice line chart showing the sum of sales and the sum of the profit. I'll also add one more visual to this page, which is a slicer, and I can slice my data by any one of these dimensions, but I want to use the year dimension, and I will use this as a drop down, so that let's just say I wanted to look at only 2020. I click 2020, and you can see that my line chart has been filtered to 2020. All of the visualizations have been filtered to 2020, and this is a good start. It's definitely not an end product, but if I wanted to share this with my team members, I need to publish this to the service. So when I click on publish, I need to save this change. I'm gonna call this demo 2. Hit save. And then this pop-up is going to show up where it asks me to publish to a specific destination, which is really workspaces in Power BI service. I'm going to hit Power BI demo, hit select. In a few moments, this will be published to the service. And I can open that up. It's asking me to sign in now. I don't want to do that, so I'll just go directly to where I know it's located, which is Power BI demo. And you can see I have this demo 2, which is what we just created. If I click on that, you can see it's the exact replica of that first report that we showcased in Power BI desktop. So keeping an eye on time, I'm going to move straight towards the next part of this presentation, which is really the licensing aspect of things. So the first Power BI tool that we can look at is Power BI Desktop, which is the free offering. That's exactly what I was using moments ago. And you could think of that as your personal sandbox, really. You can do all of your development there, but you can't share the end result with any other users. If you want to be able to share your end result with any other users, you have to get into the license aspect of Power BI, which are these next three: Power BI Pro, Power BI Premium, and Power BI Premium per user. So Power BI Pro is actually what I used there. I have that specific license, and that allows me to share content with any one of my other team members who are members of these different workspaces that I'm a part of. Power BI Premium per capacity is basically if you've got a really large organization and you develop tons of reports and you have hundreds or even thousands of users, this is probably the option that you want to go for, because it supports there's no limit on the number of users, because all free users can consume content. It's a dedicated capacity, and it handles larger data sets, heavier workloads, and you have more data refreshes per day. If, however, you kind of want to have some of the same features as Power BI Premium, you could opt for Power BI Premium per user. It's not exactly dedicated capacity, but it allows for some advanced AI capabilities, advanced data flows, and it includes all of the other pro features that are in use with this Power BI Pro license. So the last thing that I'd like to speak about before I hand it over to our moderators would be differences with these different license type. So there's this nice little matrix here which allows you to know what you can actually share with each license. So with the Power BI Pro license, yes, you're able to share content with other Power BI Pro license holders. With Premium per user, that's not possible, but Premium per capacity, it is possible with other Power BI Pro users. So you can use this matrix here to kind of gauge, well, what licensing options would be the best for me and my organization. So with that, I think I'll be able to hand it back over to our moderators, because that concludes my portion of the presentation. Thank you for listening to me. Hope you got some insights out of this.
Yes, thank you for sharing your insights, Shiv. I hope everyone found that that was very useful information. That will do it for our session here. Again, thank you.